State health officials suspended the liquor license at a bar in Bristol after it was found in violation of order by Governor Ned Lamont. Legend Sports Bar agents, this is what we're talking about, Legend Sports Bar, the agents from the Bristol-Burlington Health District showed up after 10 p.m. on Friday. And what did they find? 45 people inside of that bar drinking at the bar without ordering any food, some of them even playing pool. The governor ordered bars and restaurants in the state closed by 10 p.m. and only serve alcohol if you're ordering food.